Visualis3R is able to show you different types of ink trapping properties. So you might be thinking, what exactly is that as a designer? So we're going to demonstrate what it is and why it's needed. So first of all, there's two different types of ink absorption or trapping. So first of all, let's just forget about all the let's in fact actually keep the four colour on. Let's get rid of the silver. So we've just got four colour on here at the moment. So black, yellow, magenta, cyan, and then bills of those colours. And if we were to go into the substrate controls, we have the base material has been gloss coated type paper, but then we also have things like satin, matte and uncoated. So let's just toggle to uncoated, for example. You can see that the colours have been muted down a little bit, and we have the ability to control the gloss level of the paper and the ink absorption. So let me just max that out quite high so you can see how it's going. So you can see we have full control over how ink is absorbed into the paper, because printing on uncoated stock is different to printed on gloss coated paper. Now that's fine for printing four colour or pink or green or whatever colours you're using on base material. But when you are printing with a metallic ink or a white ink, and to some degree the neon fluorescent inks, there is different trapping properties, and that's because you've got different ways of working. For example, on an offset printing press, you would have what's known as wet trap printing on a typical litho conventional offset press. What that means is you've got wet silver ink, and then you have to stick the CMYK on top. Now the silver ink and the four colour ink have two different characteristics of trapping properties. So there's a physical difference in how the inks are manufactured, and you don't get all the ink sticking on the top. So in simple terms, if I was to print 100% cyan, 100% magenta, 100% yellow patches over the top of 100% silver, I would probably get something much less like that. So for example, let me just quickly show you what I mean. So if I drop this really far down, you'll see that we're changing the ink trapping. So in the ink trapping section of the silver ink, now it's only affecting where the colour prints over the silver, and it affects each colour differently based on the tint percentage. So you can see here, 100% silver, we've got worse trapping, and where we've got, say, maybe 25 or 50%, I can't remember what I said on this file, the trapping properties are different on these colours. So it's a mathematical, scientific, physical calculation of how ink behaves on paper. So what I'm going to show you next is what this means in real life. So let's go to page 2. So we have on this page, I've just taken two photographs using my mobile phone, so it's not 100% colour accurate, but just to prove what I mean. So on the right hand side we have two images. We have these swatch books. Now these swatch books are printed using the ColorLogic system. So if you don't know about ColorLogic, head over to the ColorLogic website, www.color-logic.com. And what it is, it's a metallic communication system for printing on metallic inks or printing onto metallic substrate with white ink. And these particular swatch books were printed by Micro Printing in the US, one of the ColorLogic licensed users. And it's a great example to show you how silver prints with four colour. So the image at the top, we have at the very bottom colour here, that has 100% cyan printing over the top of 100% silver. And at the bottom we have 100% magenta printed over 100% silver. So the bottom colour patches are the ones we're going to be looking at. And you can see here the word that says dimensional. That is actually the CMY colour on its own. So straight away you can see that these two colours do not match. 100% cyan or 100% cyan and silver, they are very, very different, and that's because of physical characteristics in the ink. And you get the same thing happening on digital devices. So if all of you have been familiar with the Ricoh Pro series, the 7200 and the 7500, you've got the Sharp BP 1200S, you've got the Fujifilm Revoria, and you've also got the Xerox Series S. They all have silver toner. And that silver toner, when you print a colour over the top of it, it fuses the colour together and combines it into that silver as like a one-shot type printing process. And you get a similar thing. You don't get these pure, nice, bright colours. So what we're going to show you here is how this works with Visualis3R. So first of all, we're going to go into the silver and we're going to add some metallic sparkle, because you can see here, silver, I mean, at the moment, this is the Visualis software here. And if I just move that over, you'll see how we've got metallic, but it's flat. It's a flat colour. Silver is not flat. Now, some rendering engines will put a texture in it like we've got in here. which is more like a surface texture than anything else, but it's not right for metallic sparkle. You can clearly see in these images you've got this very fine micro kind of texture, and that's because in this particular ink there's aluminium pigments, or aluminum if you're in America. Now aluminium pigments are very small, they're about between 8 and 12 microns in size. And this is where education and training from Visualis3R goes way beyond just telling you what, you know, a metallic ink is. We know physics, we know the basics of the inks and the properties, so we know and understand a lot more about how things interact. And this is why we built the software, so we can show you this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and add some flake size and some intensity. Now just to go over the top there so you can see it visually on the screen a little bit easier, you can see you can go quite high. Now I'm not going to go that high, I'm probably going to keep it around about 7, drop the intensity down to match something similar to that kind of effect. So now we've got a metallic kind of sparkle in our design, but the color's wrong. So we can see at the bottom down here we have 100% cyan on its own as a comparison, and we have 100% cyan printed over the silver, and then silver on its own, and the same thing down at the bottom with the magenta. So let's work on ink trapping. Go into the ink trapping properties. Now let's first of all work on the cyan. So basically we're going to drop that right down to, let's have a look, might be somewhere around 60. Now do again bear in mind that I've taken a photograph with my phone, so my phone is not exactly going to be color accurate, but you can see here we control the amount of ink trapping properties. Same thing with the magenta, it's probably going to be around the 60s sort of mark, and you get that kind of grayish kind of colorant. So you can see here, if we kind of like try and angle it at the same kind of angle as this photo has been taken, we can get that grayness coming through. Obviously you can see that's at 100%. If we drop it down, so you get the idea, we can match ink trapping properties, and it's only affecting where the color overprints the metallic, and that's really, really important. Now what we can also do is we can change our lighting, so let's just do that now. We're going to go into environmental controls, we're going to actually bring the lighting down here so it can focus kind of more half on, half off of each one. And that way you can kind of basically get the better way of working with your design. Maybe just, let's bring that trapping down, maybe just a little bit on the magenta. And again, this is all fine tuning, it may be around the 60s sort of mark. So what that means is, you're not getting 100% of the ink. So whereas you print 100% cyan or 100% magenta on top of the silver, you're only getting about 60% of the color trapping there. And that's really important as a designer, that you can see the color correctly. So if you are using a rendering device, any visualization tools that basically show you metallics, do make sure that you have this ability. And I don't think there is. It's pretty much unique to Visualis3R. We are unaware of any other company that has built a dedicated ink trapping engine built into the software. And that's the power of what we do here. We take things that are the problem and we find the solution for it. Now I've got a background in printing. I'm a pre-press veteran of over 30 years. I've worked in printing with inks, formulations. I've worked in graphic design, multimedia. I've worked in software development and plugin development. So I put all of my skill and knowledge, over 3 decades worth, into building this software to make sure it is the best optimum software for designers, pre-press, printers and brands, and keeping it at a realistic price point that basically, you know, we add features to it, we don't put the price up. So training and education is always free, so these video tutorials inside the Academy are there designed to basically show you a little bit more about what we can do with the tools, how they work. Now I'm just going to go on to page 3, so back to using some solid colors here, because we also have these ink trap tools available for different colors, and they work independently. So if you are printing, say for example on a white, maybe for example you're doing foil substrate, white ink, CMYK, and then doing a metallic as well, whatever you're trying to do, we can simulate that. So we've actually built in here a white color. You can't really see it because the background's white, but I'll demonstrate that in a moment. We have pink. Anything with a warning sign means that the layer needs to be configured because it doesn't know what kind of pink you're using. And again, pink isn't just pink. Everybody's pink's different. For example, if you're on the Fujifilm Revolver, it looks like that. It's a bubblegum pink. It's cleaner, it's brighter than some of the others. So that will work differently with the trapping properties. So again, you can match the trapping properties on this. So let's just so you can see it working in real time, I'll drop it really far down so it kind of like makes more sense so you can see it changing. So there we go, independently working the trapping with the pink. Now let's move on, let's actually set that to something a bit more realistic. Let's pretend it's somewhere around here. Okay, so we've set our pink trap. Green. Same thing. What colour is the green? Well, maybe I'm on a label press like the Mark Andy. Well, the Mark Andy works in a specific way. Maybe their trapping is not quite as bad. Maybe it's pretty good. Maybe we don't really need to do much, but we can fine tune it if we want to. We also have the spot white. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to turn off all the pink and the green. We're going to work on the spot white. Let's get rid of that silver as well. And we're going to change the substrate to a clear material. And just to show you how this all works, we're actually going to do it in an indoor environment so we can see the background. So you can see there we are on a clear material with a white. Now that white ink might not print 100%, so this is also very, very important. A white ink on a digital press, as a single pass, what that means is you're printing CMYK and a white, or white then CMYK. It's on a 5-colour engine typically, or a 6-colour if you've got like the Fujifilm Revoria or the Sharp BP1200S type devices. But it's only one hit of white, which means you've got one impression of the white going down. Now, if you get a sample of material like black paper, in fact, actually, let's show you that on a black paper to start with. Let's go on the paper, let's change the colour to like a blackish kind of colour. Let's change the gloss right down. So you can see here, we have white ink on black. Okay, so if you get a sample of black paper with white ink printed on it from your print service provider, you might find that your white doesn't really look like a white. It looks slightly greyish because the white is not 100% opaque. To get a really true opaque white, you have to put what's called multiple hits, or putting down, like some devices like the Ricoh call it like +1, +2, +3, which basically means you're upping the amount of ink over the top of that area. Some presses recommend you have to put the sheet through 2 or 3 times so that white ink will build up so you get a true solid white. Now that's really important because if you having a lower ink density of the white, we can then compensate for the trapping of that based on the opacity of that material. Now if we change the thing going up, you can see there straight away that the ink calculations have been compensated because of that effect. So it does make a difference. So if you find that your white is not quite as white, you can set it to whatever your preferred default is. You can also set that as a default in your separation. So if every time you use spot white, you say, well, white on its own, maybe 1 hit. So let's go 1 hit white. I could save that as a default. So now every time I come in, my white is going to be set to this with these trapping settings. So let's just see if we can test that out. Let's just mess around with all these sliders, change them completely different. If I now reset to default, that's reset to your default settings that you've set in here. So you're overriding the factory default settings. So every time you come in, you don't have to worry about setting it all up, provided you saved it as a default. And if you want to go back to factory reset, you can always do so. Factory reset goes back to my hard-coded settings that I've put in here. So there we go, nice easy way to be able to do all of these different settings. So from there, let's now go back to what we were going to show you. Let's go back to a clear material. So we're on the clear. Go to our ink trapping, which we're already inside. We can then change the trapping of that based on that material. So we've got 100% white in this case. Maybe we're printing it UV offset plastic white, clear plastic with a wire which goes down thick, and or an inkjet UV device, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's more translucent. So we have the ability with the Visualis3R software to control how the ink prints on different materials. And like I said, they're all independent. So if we now switch this back to a paper-based material, so we can see the others, and we switch on the silver, the pink, and the green, we can go into the pink and check that one. We've already done that one. The green, we can go in here, we set that one. The silver, normally the silver goes under the bottom. We recommend silver goes underneath because silver is the reflective surface. You put the colour over the top. If you put silver over the top of the CMYK, it's pretty much more towards the opaque end of how ink performs. So it kind of blocks a lot of the colour out. So if you want colour metallics, colour goes down on the top. So again, let's just mess around here just so you can see how each one of these are independently changed. So if we now take off the spot white, silver, and the green, and the pink. Let's switch that green off. So you can see now each one of these has got slightly different trapping properties. So if you are printing with more than one ink, you can control it independently. And that is the beauty of this software. It's designed and tailored to work the way that you do. So I hope this video tutorial was actually some benefit to you. If you have any questions, please do reach out to us at hello@v3r.studio. And if you have any recommendations, or if you want us to go over anything or make videos for anything specific, we will of course take on board any suggestions that you have. But please do check back later on for this channel for any more information or any more tutorial videos. We will periodically add something new. Okay, thanks a lot for your time.